The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone. Welcome to our first webinar, No Escaping Mobile Learning. I am Pranjali. I am the Marketing Coordinator at Upside Learning and your host for the webinar. First of all, thank you for joining us. Before we go on to the webinar, let's take a quick look at Upside Learning. Upside Learning is one of the world's leading workplace learning solution companies. For over 8 years, we have been helping over 150 clients in 13 countries to manage their learning easily and effectively. Our solutions and services portfolio includes a range of learning solutions tailor-made to organizations of different sizes and types. It comprises Upside LMS, our best value learning management system, Upside To Go, our revolutionary mobile learning platform, and custom learning solutions. We have been recognized and awarded by Brandon Hall, trainingindustry.com, Deloitte, to name a few, and have won 28 awards and recognition till date. We are very active on our blog and constantly share our knowledge, ideas, and thinking on learning, tools, and technologies. We regularly release white papers and ebooks on various topics related to the learning and technology domain. We have even partnered with some renowned organizations to aid our research endeavors. Recently, we have sponsored ASTD's report on mobile learning and have been jointly conducting webinars with Brandon Hall Group. We are also proud to be a Towards Maturity Ambassador. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the speakers, Amit Garg, Director and Founder of Custom Learning Solutions, and Abhijit Kadle, Senior Manager, Instructional Design. Amit and Abhijit, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Pranjali. Well, it's great to be here. We're really very pleased to be here today talking to you all. There's a wonderful audience. I believe we had about 500 odd registrations for this event. And so far, I can see we have about 80 odd people who have managed to join us. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to be talking to you about mobile learning, sharing our thoughts, especially on why we believe there's no escaping mobile learning for the corporate now. Just to introduce ourselves, let me give you a bit about myself. I am one of the founders at Upside Learning. I work as a director of custom learning solutions as of now. I normally get involved in our strategy related to new products, product evolutions, business development activities in the APAC and Europe regions, and also in the marketing activities. I got into the e-learning domain about 12 years ago, which was in 2000. Prior to founding Upside Learning, about 8.5 years ago, I was with another e-learning company where I got a great opportunity to grow that startup from very few people to about 400 people, small, medium enterprise. Even prior to that, I have been doing different kinds of roles in different types of industries. I have been into channel management, logistics management, operations in industries like automobile and process. And actually that experience has been very helpful in connecting with different types of clients, appreciating the kind of requirements they have, how unique they are, and how they differ from each other. Education-wise, I am a chemical engineer, an MBA. I also got a certificate in instructional design for myself when I moved into e-learning 12 years ago. On personal side, I have a small 3.5-year-old daughter that takes up most of my time besides work, and I find time for some Hindi music that I really love. Abhijit?
Thanks, Amit. My name is Abhijit Kadle. I'm the Senior Instructional Design Manager here at Upside Learning. I have a special focus on mobile learning and instructional technology. I've been leading the innovation team here at Upside for a couple of years now. A little bit about me. I've been working with computers and with multimedia technology for about 15 years. Just like Amit, I have about 12 years of experience in e-learning, of which I've spent about 10 in the design of instruction. Just like Amit, again, I'm a qualified mechanical engineer who has never really worked in anything remotely allied to mechanical engineering. In the decade that I've been designing instruction, I have had a great focus on simulations, media communication, and digital interaction. On a more personal note, I'm a hardcore gamer. I'm a big PS3 fan, so I've been playing a lot of those games. A bit of a gadget freak. And yes, I am a Lego geek, so I'm really big into Lego, and I've been collecting it since I was a kid. So this is one of the first webinars we are doing in a series. We actually hope to do a few more in the months to come. Up on screen, you can see the ones we are almost certain to do. One that we are doing is Busting Mobile Learning Myths, in which we will debunk some of the more common myths we found in the workplace that surround mobile learning. Second, we've actually published a book about this, but we also intend to create a webinar around it in which we talk about how you can create a successful mobile learning strategy. And finally, an area of interest, special interest for me, is where we'll present a webinar in which we talk about how you can leverage augmented reality in the workplace. So on our agenda today, there are just a couple of items. Firstly, we will talk about the 6 key drivers of mobile learning in the workplace today. And in the latter part of our presentation, we will talk about a little bit about how you can get started quickly with mobile learning. It's important to understand that Amit and I will be speaking more about the why of you should consider mobile learning or adopt it. It's important at the outset to know that we are not delving into the what and how of mobile learning. We feel that's more a part of strategy, and that we'll cover in the webinar I just spoke about. As you will see in this presentation, we believe the drivers or trends in mobile technology are so strong that there really is no escaping from mobile learning. So before we actually dive into our presentation, we'd like to do a small poll. So up on screen, you see some options, and we'd like to ask, which of these do you think is mobile learning? Please feel free to select more than one.
Just a quick note, I think in the final poll you'll have only 5. So this is a presentation where we had actually more than 5. So you'll have 5 in the poll. So we're closing the poll. Let's see what we've got here.
Wow, this is really interesting. Most of us feel that mobile learning is just-in-time access to information and experts, and having mobile devices enabled with technology and tools to help job performance. If you look at it closely, all of those elements are actually mobile learning. Essentially, any sort of activity that you can do with a mobile device that can assist learning or performance is mobile learning. So can we move away from the results and back to the presentation? This is a infographic that I found on Judy Brown's blog, and she published it some time ago, which actually lists some of the activities that you would associate with mobile learning or performance support. And it's important to point out, all of these are mobile learning. Again, any sort of activity that you do with your mobile device for performance support or learning is mobile learning.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting. Some of these obviously we did not list in our survey or a poll that we just had. It was interesting to see, 40% people voted for location services as part of mobile learning. So yeah, I think this graphic is really talking about mobile everything that could really be done. There are so many things that are mentioned there. It's just it is a limit of our imagination that can really be done with mobile devices. I also had another thought on this, maybe something that adds on to this, which is what Clark Quinn says in his book on designing mLearning, which is mLearning is about augmenting our learning and our performance. So the three keywords highlighted there. To me, the real keyword here is augmentation or augmenting, because I truly believe if we were to look at mobile learning that way, we would probably be past most of the myths that we encounter and the difficulties that we encounter while planning and implementing mobile learning. Uh, you know, so if we can really look at augmenting learning and performance to be our goals and objectives when looking at mobile learning, I think that will be brilliant and that will be much, much easier to implement. All right, with that, we get into our first driver. So that's mobile augmentation is the word that we would want you to really consider when you're looking at implementing any sort of mobile learning. Uh, let's look at the key drivers. There are 6 of them which we're going to talk about today. The first one is something that you're probably witnessing yourself, which is really about the growing mobile workforce. This is a graph that we created from the data that we had from an IDC study, which talks about how the mobile workforce is going to grow around the world. If you look at the topmost line there, you're looking at this one here. You have the worldwide mobile workforce growing from about 1 billion to about 1.3 billion from 2010 to 2015, and that represents about 37.2% of the global workforce, and that's huge. Just look at the last one, which is Americas down here. It was 75% in 2010 itself. Just so that you are clear on how mobile workers are defined in this, if I remember correctly, it's about 20% of time away from their normal workplaces. If you think of this, work is for many people now becoming a task that they do rather than a place that they go to. So they could be, maybe at an airport, waiting for something, at home, at a cafe, but they might be working. There are people, you're already listening to things like, 24-hour workday, because you might be checking mails before you go to sleep. You check mails before you start for work, etc. So essentially, the work and life itself is kind of mingling with each other to some extent, and most people are becoming mobile workers. So the definition of mobile workers here is essentially people who spend 20% of their time or more away from their normal workplaces. This, obviously, the advent of mobile technology has really created this situation and made it possible, though the desire may have been there for long. The key advantages that organizations are really seeing are really increased productivity, and that's based on some research that really proves that organizations which are dispersed and mobile normally have more productive numbers. It also leads to happier knowledge workers. They demand their control over time, space, when and how they work. It's affecting how organizations are recruiting and retaining talent. And it also results in better organizational agility. A distributed mobile workforce is more capable in responding to any emergencies that come in. However, it also puts in a lot of challenges for this mobile workforce in how you manage and communicate with them. Motivation is a big aspect of managing. These are, just imagine lonely people working from different places, people who are completely mobile, home workers, completely, 100% telecommuters. So motivation is an area that needs to be managed. Managing and monitoring their performance is another area that we need to be considering. For our discussion, training and coaching becomes the most important that needs to be worked on. I think as we go along, we will have to look at ways of transforming the training from predominantly the push structure that it exists in a lot of organizations today to something which is more accommodative. It has more pull components. So the training managers or managers in general would need to look at how we allow our workforce, especially the mobile workforce, to be able to access the right information, use the right tools, to be more productive, in the process of being more productive, rather than pushing out learning to them to be done without a defined time frame when that will be really utilized. And I think for the pull part and combining the mobile workforce is the one that we're targeting here. Mobile just fits in very well as a device on which all of these could be achieved. We're already beginning to see some examples of utilization of mobile technology in certain teams. Sales, for example, is usually the first team in most organizations. They are also the most mobile, of course. They are beginning to use mobile devices for various of their work processes, sales, time and expense sheets, video calls, conferencing, order entry and tracking systems, CRM integrations. Just imagine somebody's going to meet a client and maybe he met them a few days ago or a few weeks ago. He needs to check this exact status of things. He can go to the CRM to check that before the meeting. That's just a small example, but then in the sales teams, we're beginning to see a lot of inclusion of mobile technologies to help them perform better, respond faster. It is only a matter of time that we start shifting a lot of training and performance support to the mobile devices for this workforce. That actually brings us to the second poll for the day. Which mobile devices do you use? And please feel free to select more than one. Most people actually seem to be carrying more than one these days. So we'll be closing that now.
Wow, that is amazing.
And has the results.
So just to break in, I think this sort of survey result was a foregone conclusion. Given our audience, I really think most of the individuals in our audience would have a smartphone and a tablet, which actually brings me to the next driver that we are going to talk about. So can we go back to the presentation, please? Yeah. So the second driver that I actually wanted to talk about today was the shift in computing. The audience today is a really good example of that. 81% of the individuals in our audience carry a smartphone. More than 50% own a tablet device. So these are pretty amazing figures. So this was something I picked up from the Business Insider a few months ago, which basically says that in a few years, the number of mobile devices will dwarf the number of PCs we have. So, we are reaching a point where smartphone and tablet sales are going to overtake PC sales for the first time in history. In 2011, smartphones showed a 63% growth in sales. If you compare that to the growth in sales of PCs, you'll find that the difference is exponential, because the PC revolution took many years to come through. The mobile revolution, it seems, is coming through in a very short period of time. So it's a foregone conclusion that in a few years, smartphones and tablets will pretty much outnumber most personal computers as we know them today. What this actually indicates is that there's a shift in the way we do general purpose computing. There was a time when a computer meant a large desktop device, tied to your desk. Later in life, it became something like a portable computer. The latest ones today that you see are what they call ultrabooks, but in essence, they have not changed from the time that they were born, about 25 years ago. However, smartphones and tablets are changing all that, because what you're now doing is you are essentially carrying a very powerful mobile and internet-connected computer in your pocket. I'm sure you've all noticed this shift, right? I see it almost every day on my commute when I'm out to get a cup of coffee. People are moving to smartphones and mobile devices at a very rapid rate, and I see that they spend a lot of time with them as well. I'm sure you've noticed that change as well. Let me bring up the next slide. This is a graphic I picked up from one of Qualcomm's reports on state of telecom, which again kind of elucidates exactly the same point I made, that smartphone and tablet shipments have overtaken PC shipments since the last quarter of 2010. And going ahead, this is only going to, the gap between PCs and handheld, tablet and mobile devices is only going to become bigger and bigger. So, we need to understand that if general computing is shifting to handheld devices, more and more organizations, like Amit just mentioned, are going to ensure that their systems are available on such devices. So, like he said, simple access to, say, expense filing systems or time reporting systems. Initially, like he said, the mobile workforce will be the first group of individuals to benefit. However, as people who work in training or are involved with learning in the organization, it's really high time for us to think about how we can use that technology to affect learning and performance. Interestingly, I heard this story a couple of weeks back about a CEO of a middle-sized organization with about 10,000 employees. He got a new iPad and he walked into the office and he asked his IT team why his iPad wouldn't work with the corporate systems. It's an interesting anecdote because the technology is not just you and I, but it's percolating down to every level of management, right from the top right to the very bottom. So it's a shame if you don't leverage it. Okay. Move to the next slide. So this brings up our next poll. So it's interesting. I'd really love to ask, which of these do you use your mobile phone for?
Alright, so we have the results here. So pretty much everything, maximum being the email, almost 100%, search being very high, maps being high, of course news and social media as well. Alright, that doesn't come as a surprise really, and it is exactly what we wanted to bring up as our next driver today, which is the changing behavior patterns. I want to take you back a few years when the maps and GPS wasn't available on your mobile phones or navigators. When you had to go out on a trip to a place that you didn't know much of or you've not been in a long time, you'd probably do some preparation. You would make notes, understand where to take turns, etc. Incidentally, that we've left all of that. Now, all we care for is probably the zip code or the pin code. And we just insert that into our phones or the devices that we have, and the device does the rest. It tells you turn-by-turn directions. It also corrects you rather, when you miss a turn or you take a wrong turn. Essentially, that's a great example of performance support in our daily lives. And think about it, I think we are all getting used to it, to an extent that we think it is a necessity. It is sometimes, now we can possibly think this way, it is difficult to live without it. And that is exactly what is happening to us in so many other domains where we are using mobile phones. Some of those you brought up, search, social media. Some of the social media sites actually get more hits or more traffic from mobile devices than from desktops or PCs. So this is one part, which is maps, is an example of us becoming a little dependent on our devices for our day-to-day needs. There's another thing which is an indicator, which is this term, which is nomophobia. which essentially means that if you did not have your mobile phone with you for some reason, or you lose it, or the battery runs down, or you don't get network, you would start getting anxious. And that is what is nomophobia is. The fear of not having your phone around or not having connectivity because of battery or network not being available is nomophobia. And a lot of people suffer from it. I mean, maybe you and me also suffer from it because we're so used to it. It is the one personal thing that we carry always with us. You know, we change dress, we change so many things, but we probably just don't change the phones. We just keep a phone every time with us. Very similar to the result that we got in our poll just now. This is a 2011 survey where we could see people doing a whole lot of activities on their mobile phones, which is essentially an indication of what we are beginning to do on our mobile phones in our personal times. Another indicator is for the, a couple of graphics that we found for baby boomers, people who are now maybe in the range of 50, 60, 65. These are not the set of audience that we would have naturally imagined would be going on to the internet using their mobile devices and would be active on social media. But that's exactly what is happening. The first graphic suggests that a pretty decent 38% of the 65 plus population has smartphones. The second one suggests that about 40% of them would be using mobile internet by about 2015, which the point we are trying to make here is personal behavior is changing. We are becoming more and more used to mobile devices for our daily usage. It's almost like a support system in some cases. Once we are so used to these devices, it's only natural to expect that we would have some office or business applications uses to it, which will help us in situations where we have not had any support of this kind. So your personal patterns will shift to the business place, and that's a trend that we'll definitely see.
It's interesting, Amit, that you point to the baby boomers. A few years ago, I remember writing a blog post about how baby boomers are retiring in the workplace, and there's an issue with transferring knowledge from these baby boomers to the newer generations of people. So who are these newer generations of people actually? So before we get into talking about the demographics of the 21st century workforce, I'd like to point to something that marketing people use all the time. So they've defined a Gen X, a Gen Y, and a Gen Z. So Gen X are essentially individuals who are born between 1966 and 1976 and who came of age between 1988 and 1994. I'm someone who falls in that category. Then there is Generation Y, individuals who were born in 1977 to 1994 and who came of age between 1998 and 2006. These are individuals who have already started to enter the workplace. Some are already well entrenched in the workplace. And then there is Gen Z. These are the people who have been born recently, between 1995 to 2012, and who will probably come of age between 2013 in the following year, up to around 2020. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because it's really important to understand that Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z view and use technology differently. The workforce, as I mentioned, is seeing the entry of what are called the millennials or Generation Y. We've always believed that these individuals are more tech savvy than the previous generations, and definitely they are tech savvy as compared to the baby boomers. While Amit did mention that baby boomers are also adopting technology, the millennials have been one step ahead, so as to say, right? They grow up with the technology, they use it on a day-to-day basis, it's a part of their jobs, they're always connected, they communicate through emails and text messages. So we must wonder and ask, is instructor-led training the most desired mode of learning for these individuals? Perhaps not. So some time ago, I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but a writer called Mark Prensky wrote a book called Digital Natives and Digital Immigrants. Way back in 2001, he was talking about this generational gap. There was a lot of criticism. In fact, there was a huge storm of criticism around, oh, this is not possible. How can two groups of individuals who are just separated by a few years use technology differently? But over the last couple of years, research has emerged that shows that those generation differences do exist. Perhaps they are not as strong as Prensky suggested, but definitely they are there. So it's important for us as L&D people to take that into account when we create strategies for learning. So we need to understand what the characteristics of this generation are. So let's not deny the fact that different generations understand and behave with technology differently. We need to leverage that. So just before I leave this particular driver, I want to point to Gen Z. Gen Z is very special, right? If the millennials were technology natives, Gen Z is what I'd call internet and web native. More importantly, these are also mobile native individuals. So three key things about Gen Z. One is they have this expectation that the content is out there. Any sort of content. They have this idea that you can just look up Google or Bing or any of these search engines and find exactly what you need to address the problem or address their need at that point in time. Typically, they'd use a mobile device to achieve that. So one of the key skills they think is clearly to be able to find something and utilize it at the point of need. Another element that is quite striking is their familiarity with games. So, for individuals like me who are Gen X, games were something that we adopted as we grew up. But for individuals in Gen Z, games are something they are native to. And the metaphors from games have seeped into cultural, common cultural and societal life. So all of us today are almost familiar with some sort of game metaphors. So this is a really second cool thing about it. And the third really cool thing about Gen Z is that they generate a lot of content. I really don't need to elaborate more on that. If you go to YouTube, that's a really good example of user-generated content. Every day, every hour, individuals from the world over are uploading thousands and thousands of hours of video that they've made themselves. This is a drastically different thing from what we saw in Gen X or Gen Y. We were not such huge content generators, but Gen Z, they're huge content generators. They upload images, upload videos, they're constantly sharing stuff on social networks. So point I'm making, the driver is simply that different generations understand and behave with technology differently, but the 21st century workforce will be mobile native. So in L&D, we need to take advantage of that. To move on. So the next driver that I wanted to talk a little bit about was, when do we actually learn? It's an interesting question. Most people have varied answers when I ask them a question, where do you learn? When was the last time you failed at something? Do you remember that? I'm sure you do. Where you got stuck, you had to leave your job or task halfway through. You probably remember how you rectified that. Point I'm trying to make is that learning is something that doesn't necessarily happen in discrete events. It's a continuous thing. We are constantly learning. And as we go about our daily lives, we encounter learning situations which we learn from. In that sort of situation, we need to ask, L&D had this whole event-based training model. Maybe it doesn't work as well. So if you look at event-based training, if you look at the graph up on the screen right now, I've put time elapsed on the x-axis and retention on the y-axis. So from the point when an event starts, you find that retention goes down. As time goes by, retention reduces until it plateaus out, and perhaps the learner retains maybe 20% of what you had actually instructed them on. in the event. What mobile technology, I think, allows us to do is to change that model a little bit. Right. So if you look at this second graph now, what I'm saying is mobile technology lets you extend learning. I'm not saying don't have that event. It's a great thing to have. Get people into a classroom, talk to them, get them to do an e-learning course together. It's a great starting point. But after that, don't fizzle out. One way you can do that, right, is to use mobile technology to create some sort of reinforcements that happen periodically in the time that elapses since your event. It could be as simple as providing a job aid, doing a survey, providing some of the content again, trying to analyze what situations the learners are in, and to provide content that's appropriate to their work performance and environment. So mobile technology can definitely help you extend learning from the typical event-based model. So continuing in that vein about when do we actually learn, this is a model I really like, Gottfredson's moment of learning needs. I'm sure a lot of L&D people have heard about Gottfredson's and probably read some of his work as well. It's important to understand here there's 5 moments of learning need. Typically, we learn when we need information when we want to learn for the first time, when we want to learn more, when we are trying to remember something, when something in our environment has changed, or typically when something goes wrong. In fact, that's the one where we rush about and try to learn to fix the problem. Mobile fits the last 3 situations really well. Because it's carried on the person and is available at all times, it's really great. So if I'm trying to remember something, I can always just pull out my phone, look up some reference material, or use a tool that can help me do that. If I encounter a change in my work environment, that's another area in which I would definitely pull out my phone, see what I can use that helps me address that change in the environment. And finally, in the last situation where something goes wrong, again, a phone is really good because it lets you access information and tools in that particular place, in that work environment, at the point of need. Very important to understand that mobile is great for these 3 situations. To move on.
All right, that really brings us to the last driver that we are talking about today. Just to add a little bit to what Abhijit was talking about in terms of adding extended components to your training program, I think it just makes brilliant sense to be able to add some scenarios where you can allow people to think, reflect on what they had learned, and just maybe answer one or two questions. What would they do in a situation like that? Which brings back all the learning that they had in the event to the fore, and they apply it to maybe a fictitious situation, but do apply, and that kind of solidifies their understanding and learning, and prepares them for a real life situation like that when it does happen. Yeah, but I think mobile does offer a great opportunity, as Abhijit was talking about, for both push and pull kind of programs. So great. So this is the last one that we're talking about, which is essentially doing more with less, a theme that I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. Essentially, I think, even though we have been hearing about this more recently in the last maybe 5-6 years more often, but this is something that we believe is kind of a perpetual desire of an enterprise. Ever since the Industrial Revolution began, we have been inventing machines, processes, systems, essentially to achieve higher productivity, higher efficiency, less time, more quality. All of those things are essentially the parameters on which most enterprises really strive to improve year after year. There are new technologies that are introduced, there are new systems that come in, but the goal is often the same, which is to improve productivity, and which essentially is doing more with less in a way. So the point we are trying to make here is, even after and if at all the global economy recovers and we are back to some sort of better days, if we can call that, the desire for doing more with less will not go away. It will remain. We just think that mobile is the latest set of devices that are available and which offer huge potential to deliver that sort of efficiency. There are a couple of reasons why we believe that mobile can give us that sort of efficiency. One, that it fits in your staff's idle time, and idle time could be time on commute, waiting at places, in between things. So it could really be something that can fill their time productively. I mean, you would, if you commute on local trains, you'd find people doing things, most often listening to music, sometimes reading books, sometimes doing things which they really enjoy during that time. Some just take up a free newspaper to spend those 15, 20, 30 minutes. Not that they would possibly do it every day, just that if it is available and if they have the desire, it will fill their idle time more productively. The other aspect is essentially it helps improving the response times or reacting to a situation just by getting the information instantly. So if you are connected to a CRM system, if you have emails coming to your phones, if you are connected to other systems that can be put onto your mobile devices, you are able to respond much, much faster. So there is going to be a movement towards adopting more systems, more processes onto mobile devices. A good example would be somebody who's going on a field visit, a troubleshooting person, a technical engineer. If he has access to information that can help him make the most of that particular visit, he doesn't have to make two visits, for instance. So if he was not sure about a particular motor or a pump or equipment that he was going to really repair, either he comes back, he calls up someone. If the help is available, that's again some support that's available real time. But if it's available on mobile phones, excellent. It really helps improve productivity, and that's where it fits into this key driver, which is going to remain a key driver for times to come. So that kind of brings us to the end of these 6 drivers that we are talking of. We listed all of them once again just to have a quick view. Growing mobile workforce, shift in computing, personal behavior pattern changing, 21st century workforce demographics, when do we actually learn, and doing more with less. We believe each one of them is powerful enough to really get someone excited and get on to mobile learning and start adopting it for the individual driver's merit. But together, I think they do create a perfect storm. And we definitely believe that it's very, very difficult for a corporate to ignore mobile learning. With that, we'll move on to our last poll. Abhijit, would you want to take it?
Yeah, so this is an interesting poll. So we wanted to ask, what stage are you in an mLearning implementation? So are you wondering about it, thinking about whether you want to do it, how to start? Are you already grappling with it? Have you already started facing the issues that one typically encounters? Or you've been an early adopter and are enjoying the benefits? Or you're just watching developments with interest and building your knowledge so you will be ready when the time comes? Okay, so instantly we see that a lot of you are already involved in some sort of mobile learning activity. A small number of the audience is already enjoying the benefits, so I'm really glad to hear that. It's really interesting. How do you start? Where do you start? Move this slide. Okay, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about how you can get started quickly. My first piece of advice is just do it. I know it sounds pretty cliched. Maybe it's a very corny Nike marketing piece from the early 90s, but in this particular sense, it really applies well. Based on our experience, we know that it's really difficult to please all stakeholders and begin an initiative. Some mobile learning experts would actually advise you to come up with a proper strategy before venturing into the mobile learning domain. We've seen various approaches being tried by organizations, but we found that things change, people change, the business environment changes, processes change. Change is something that keeps happening in the environment, and it's very difficult to come up with a strategy that can keep track of all those constant changes in the environment. So our recommendation, just go ahead and do it first. Think about the strategy later. Yes, this is definitely what would be seemingly contrarian advice. But again, I would say, jump in, get your feet wet, get your hands dirty, and try mobile augmentation at some level in your organization. Why I'm saying that is really because you need to first get some first-hand experience, to know what it's about, to see how your organization's employees use technology. You probably notice small groups of individuals using technology, but when you do something for a larger group of people, how they use technology becomes important. You should be able to derive a few benefits from doing a really small pilot and seeing how that works, which is why we say, just go ahead and do it. You can think about strategy later.
If I can quickly jump in, Vijit, I think, I think that's a great suggestion because a lot of times people do get into circles of approvals and wondering about which devices to target, which technology to pick up. There are so many myths which we are also going to talk about in another webinar. But when you are getting down to creating a full-blown strategy, it is not so simple and it doesn't really happen very quickly. The unfortunate thing is that you spend that much time just wondering, and you are kind of behind. So, not that by getting started quickly that you would actually be implementing something which is going to be brilliant. But our experience is small pilots will give you great first-hand experience to be able to implement a much better strategy later on. At least you will know which areas to focus on, which department to focus on, which segment is more responsive, which type of devices you want to limit yourself to, etc. And then you can possibly expand it. But at least get started. I think that the core message that we are trying to give here is get started with something small if you've not done anything so far.
Right. So you're going to get started. 3 things you really need to look at before you get started. 1, define or identify a clear business need. It may be in your local group, it may be in your development office, it may be across your organization, it may be geographically restricted, but you definitely need to know that there is a business need that you can address with your pilot. Second, like I was pointing out, you need to understand if you have a receptive audience. So as an example, if I were designing an intervention that used mobile augmentation in some way, the audience we have here for the webinar today is ideal for it. 80% of them have smartphones, 50% have tablets. Great. But if you're going to go out there and do that in your organization, you really need to analyze, does the audience have the required technology? Do they have the handset? Do they have 3G connections? So make sure you have a receptive audience before you jump into it. Third, this especially applies if you're a medium or a large organization, is you already have some technology in-house. You probably have a learning management system, you probably have some sort of content management system, document management, knowledge management, something that keeps content. If you have it, it's good because that gives you a really good starting point. You can take content from that system and put it up in the mobile augmentation. I'm going to quickly cover 3 areas, I think, which we can address quickly. I'm trying to move to the next slide. Yeah. So what I was talking about, right, is 3 areas which we call the low-hanging fruit. Ripe and ready, you just need to pick them. So the first area clearly is, like I mentioned, is to look for content that lends itself to conversion for access on mobile devices. Most organizations have all sorts of content in various organizational silos. L&D is one huge silo which has a huge amount of training material, associated documentation, and a whole lot more. So look for content in that you think can do well on a mobile device and actually, an audience would want to use on a mobile device. Up on screen, you can see a couple of examples of that.
If I can quickly comment on some of these, I think one a word of caution that conversion of existing content does not mean conversion of existing e-learning. So as Abhijit was mentioning, there are a few checkpoints we should validate. Will it be suitable for the audience, for the context in which they will use? Will it work on the mobile device? Will it really augment their learning or performance? But that's really the basic premise with which we should be approaching mobile. A quick word about these examples, and I know we are now kind of running against time. We have about 10 minutes remaining, and so we'll quickly finish this and we'll have about 5 minutes for questions. The first one is an app that was created for Toyota Yaris launch in the UK, where it was essentially distributed on to the participants who came for the launch function. It's more of a digital interactive multimedia brochure that's available on the iPads. You can click no more, you can change the mode, you can compare with other models, you can see features, you can see videos, you can see image galleries. Essentially a digital interactive multimedia brochure. Just lended very well to the kind of function that was, and it kind of created a good environment around it. The other one is mLearning guide. Some of you may have already seen it. If you have not, we strongly recommend you go and download that from mLearn ADL site. It's a good, nice compilation of various things that you would encounter, but it's also a good example of something that you can do internally. If you have manuals or things that you want your people to have always with them, it could be a quick start guide that you want to structure in mobile, and you want them to possibly read it when they are having free time. Let's say we talked about filling their idle times more productively. So that's where something like that can go in.
So another situation that you can look at if you want to get started quickly is to look for job situations in which employees need just-in-time information. We found, and research has found over the years, that when you provide information at the point of need, just in time, it improves performance. This is something we've done for a customer from the United Kingdom, and Amit actually had some interesting points about that.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of making just-in-time appropriate help available to almost anyone. So if you can see there in the graphic, there's a bottle of a cleaning liquid which is carrying a QR code. You can scan the QR code with your mobile phone, and the next thing is it will take you to a place where you can watch a video about that product, how to use it. There's a data sheet that you will have. There's a health and safety guideline that if you want to access that. But for me, the most interesting one, of course, is the 1-minute video, which we have shown here. Essentially, if you are not knowing how to use that product, it tells you via video in 1 minute how to really use that product. It's brilliant for a person who's using that product for the first time. Are we to the last thing?
Yes. This is the last area that I really wanted to point to. We talked about converting content. We talked about providing content just in time at the point of need. One thing we need to understand is mobile devices are essentially computers, so they can do pretty much anything a computer can do. So what that means is essentially you can provide tools in the form of applications that can help with job performances. This is another example that we created for a customer from the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think this is again a great example of how we can supplement or provide performance support in terms of taking complex tasks and making them much easier. Like this one, if I were to do cable size calculation in the normal way, I would probably be using manuals and charts and looking up tables for numbers, using the right formulas, ensuring that it fits in all the right values that's been decided by the British standards. So what this app really does is it allows you to enter values, and it does most of the stuff in the back end for you. So looking up charts and tables is its headache, not yours. So kind of makes it more, or comparatively more error-free. It allows you to store values and cases for future reference. It would also allow you to possibly send it to your superior who might be sitting in a different location to validate before you go and actually do the job. So many advantages, but yes, a good example of a good job performance support tool. I think with that, we come to the end of our presentation today. Before we wrap up, here's a look at the webinars that we'll be doing in the coming months. One will be about busting the mobile learning myths, creating successful mobile learning strategy, and the last one that we have decided so far is augmented reality in the workplace. Also, if you're interested, we could possibly catch up at one of these places. We'll be at the LearnX Melbourne later this month. There's a Mobi MOOC that's being organized. If any of you are interested, it's a massive open online course on mobile learning. There will be various themes. Incidentally, I have an opportunity to be a facilitator on the corporate mLearning for a week. Just search for Mobi MOOC 2012 and you'll be led to a wiki page. If you feel like that, please sign up. We'll be there in Birmingham for World of Learning in October, at the CLO Summit Mumbai in November, and in January at the Learning Technologies London. All right. Any quick questions that we can take up? I don't know. I think we have about 4 minutes, I think. I'll just read through some of the questions. That will we get presentation copies? Yes, you will. Location-based services, yes. I mean, things like Foursquare, etc., would be location-based services. Abhijit, you want to add anything too? There was a question: what are location-based services?
Actually, I did respond to that question. So location-based services are essentially services, internet-based services that use your phone's location to provide contextual information. Like Amit mentioned, Foursquare is a great example, which tells you what restaurants, cafes, coffee shops are around where you are based on your phone's location.
Yes, and will the slides be available after this webinar? I think yes. I think we'll have the webinar recording available, and we'll send you a mail hopefully by tomorrow, if not tomorrow, day after for sure. There has been a lot of criticism about Prinsky's research and the book. Yes, we are definitely aware of that. The only point I think we were trying to make there is, while the divide is not so stark, there is still a difference that can be observed.
That's right. It's something you and I can see out in the workplace, almost all over the world. In any place you see humans interact, you see smartphones and tablets these days. So we definitely need to be taking advantage of them.
All right. Use of mobile devices in different cultures and societies will definitely differ. Absolutely well-made point. We agree.
I also see a...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Amit. Okay, I see a question that says, is HTML5 ready for mobile learning? Well, at this time, I think not yet. Perhaps it still needs to mature a little more. However, I do want to point out that if you really want to do something that's truly cross-platform today, there is very little, there are very few technology options other than HTML5. So I would definitely recommend it. I would just not maybe implement some of its more advanced features that don't render correctly or consistently across browsers.
Excellent. And probably we'll cover a little more of that in our mobile learning strategy program. And I think it also is in our mobile learning myths program. Okay. There was a question about MP3 players and voting systems being mobile devices. I think definitely MP3 players are part of mobile learning devices, but yes, their capabilities are limited. As we saw, what we are beginning to do with our devices these days are much more than what MP3 players can support. So yes, for limited use, they have been used very successfully in educational scenarios for learning, but I think for workplace, maybe MP3 players are really not so suitable unless you are implementing a very specific thing. So maybe if you have MP3 players available with your audience in various formats, a quick pilot is a good thing that you can do with MP3 players to test mLearning. Voting systems, I would really not think, because there's not much of feedback that you get from that. You don't have much choice with them. If I am understanding what you are saying here with voting systems, they are essentially one way when a trainer tells you which option do you choose from the things that have been presented on the screen in the classroom. There was an interesting comment. This presentation sounds as if it is targeted at large organizations with big budgets, with established L&D departments. Well, actually, on the contrary, no, because we we find that a lot of implementations have huge problems if everybody gets involved in the initial stages. So it's best if smaller teams get involved. We've seen most successful implementations happening when the sales head says, this is what I really want to achieve with mobile learning in my organization, and that really because he has the complete control over what he wants to do. Maybe he has his own limited budget, but he knows exactly what he wants to do, and that works very well. So our advice also that we just gave today was really to get started quickly without bothering for a very comprehensive strategy. If this is the first time you're looking at mobile learning, is really for all sorts of organizations. I mean, if you are a department in an organization and you're not in L&D, we might still advise that you might just go ahead and do something at your level itself, if that's possible in your setup. Do you have any general strategies now for mobile learning in corporate yet? Varies quite a bit with what you really want to achieve, where you're located, what kind of audience, so many things, and I think we'll be better off covering that in a whole webinar. So maybe the second one after this or the third one after this would take that.
Okay, I still see there are a few more questions, and we've actually gone past our allotted time. So maybe what we can do is I can try to answer some of these questions on our blog in the following week. So if you guys kind of look at our blog sometime next week, I'll put up some answers, and we can have a conversation around that blog post on our blog.
Sure, and if we can leave you with this thought, there is a free ebook that's available on our website. If you care to download that and go through that, it would capture some of the thoughts that we shared today and about the whole implementation strategies that we'll be talking about. Okay. All right, so that's all from our side. Thanks so much, everyone. It was a real pleasure to talk to so many people today and share our thoughts. We would love to interact with you in future again.
Thank you so much.